My hair is crazy today, and I don't think there's anything I can do about it. But welcome to the garden anyway, where we do feminism from a materialist perspective. Today we got a response video for you. Today we're going to be talking to our old friend Jamie, because it's just so perfect. I almost feel as if this person is like the bizarro version of who I might have been had I chosen to indulge certain inclinations of mine as a younger person. Real quick though, please like the video if you enjoy my content, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of my antics, and you know, share it around, because we're trying to drag feminism kicking and screaming back into the real world, whether it likes it or not. I don't think that Jamie would like that very much. This video is barely not even 10 minutes long, and boy howdy is it just packed. So buckle up ladies, let's get to it.
Today's video is about inclusive language and the notion that women are actually people, and hating on inclusive language does not help anybody.
Why exactly this person felt that they needed to transition if women are just people. Because I have never been able to think of another reason for a woman to decide that she's actually a man other than internalized misogyny. If anyone knows of any, please tell me in the comments, because I am at a loss.
I thought a good starting point for this video would be to define inclusive language, and then we can kind of go on and have a chat about it from there. Inclusive language is language that avoids the use of certain expressions or words that might be considered to exclude particular groups of people.
So they have to invent new ones. That doesn't seem like euphemistic thinking to anyone else, you know, like the difference between saying somebody died and that they passed on. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that we just throw the words for it away. As far as it being considered to exclude particular groups of people, I am very comfortable with excluding male people from everything that has to do with women. Except maybe the dating pool, maybe. I'm very comfortable with excluding certain groups from certain other groups. That is what a group does. That's what a category is. Inclusive language is useless language because it doesn't actually describe anything.
In the context of today's video, I'm specifically looking at gender-related terms and expressions. So an example of this would be the use of masculine words and expressions. If the words man or male pronouns are used, then that would be seen as excluding women from that discussion. More specific to gender-related inclusive language, I want to discuss it in terms of trans people, because this is where some people get very upset. Because they, one, mistakenly view inclusive language as erasing women, or excluding women, or reducing women down to body parts.
Calling someone a uterus haver reduces her to her uterus. It is the only thing about her to which you are referring. That is exactly what that is, yes. And of course it erases women. It literally takes us out of the conversation. I don't know how much more clear it could be.
2, they're transphobic. Or 3, it's kind of a mixture of both. They don't really understand the use of inclusive language, and they're transphobic.
I can't be afraid of something I do not believe exists. There's no such thing as someone who was born in the wrong body. It doesn't exist. It's not a thing. I'm speaking as someone who pretty much felt that way about myself for, I don't know, 15 years or so, before all this shit was cool. I am pretty linguistically inclined myself. I've done quite a bit of writing. I have a blog still, if anyone is interested in that kind of thing. Like, I understand the language. And I am not transphobic. You're just wrong.
Phrases such as people with periods, pregnant people, people with a cervix, causes outrage among transphobes in particular.
In particular, huh? You really think that just referring to someone as a menstruator isn't just gross? She does go on in a minute to talk about gender neutral language used on men. Which is funny. Conflating sex and gender again, but we'll get there,
Saying pregnant people or people who menstruate is not excluding women.
It is obscuring the fact of who the fuck you're talking about. Adult human females, and there is a word for that. We already have one. We don't need all your fucking euphemistic bullshit.
And is only used in contextually relevant situations.
Contextually relevant situations like legislation? You make this sound like it's no big deal. You literally say at one point that it's not widespread. Okay, tell that to Congress.
Where more than just women have to be included in the discussions, such as in healthcare settings. But if you as a woman are pregnant, you're not going to be referred to as that person. It's just simply on things like leaflets that are accessible to everybody, but on an individual level, you will still be addressed as your gender. You being a woman is not going to be erased.
Except if sex and gender are so completely different and disconnected from one another, then what in the world would my gender have to do with whether or not I were pregnant? Why does being pregnant as a trans man risk getting you misgendered? What does your reproductive sex have to do with your gender? Must have something to do with it. You felt the urge to grow that beard.
By phrases such as pregnant people being used on top level situations and very certain situations as well. It's not incredibly widespread. But most confusingly, are women not people?
You are a specific sort of person, which you are obscuring by leaving out the specificity, by referring to our organs instead of us as human beings. It's insulting, it's disgusting, and you're wrong.
Tory peer Baroness Nicholson thinks calling women people is misgendering. People isn't a gender. Exactly, people is not a gender. It's used in inclusive language specifically because it's not a gender and it doesn't refer to a specific gender of any kind. Every human is a person, women are people, men are people, non-binary people are people.
Are non-binary people people? A person is a human, and humans are sexually dimorphic. So if you are neither male nor female, just a silly little thought experiment there, because none of this shit makes any sense.
You cannot misgender somebody by using a gender-neutral term. It's literally impossible. Its use can also not exclude anybody because by its very nature it is including everybody that needs to be included in the relevant context.
The word woman was already including everyone who needed to be included in the relevant context. By refusing to use the words for the things they are talking about, they are obscuring what they are talking about. Obfuscation and distraction, and the rohypnol effect on your brain where you're having to double and triple think about everything you say before it comes out of your mouth.
So we've got that issue where people seem to be upset by the use of people. But really what's important to address is it highlights a lack of awareness that it is important to include more than just one gender in certain discussions.
Why would it be important to include genders in discussions about sexual reproduction if gender and sex are so completely disconnected from one another? What the fuck are you talking about, Jamie?
This is particularly important in healthcare scenarios. It's very important to acknowledge that not only women can have periods, not only women can get pregnant or have a cervix, and much more than this, and that not all women experience these things either.
Yes, only women do any of those things. You would know because you've gone to a lot of trouble to escape that. And it hasn't actually worked, has it? Trans women don't have cervixes. They don't. Trans women don't menstruate. They don't. Even if one were to accept the idea that some women are, by some tragic circumstance, born in male bodies. Those male women don't menstruate and they don't have cervixes and they can't get pregnant. Oh, I'm sorry. The trans men. Right. It must be terribly disconcerting when you think you're a dude inside to be pregnant. For me, it was a watershed moment of, gosh, maybe material reality is just gonna be more of a nag than I had hoped. That maybe I'm not actually gonna be able to wish myself happy. And apparently for other people it is just another opportunity to dig their heels in and insist that everyone around them cater to their delusions. All right, if you're pregnant and you think you're a man, you're mistaken. And you should probably unpack that. You will be happier for having done so, I promise.
Also, conversely, that not only men experience certain things, but this is not something that people throw a fuss about. It's not a big discussion of this video because people don't care. People don't seem to notice when gender-neutral language is used to refer to things that are typically seen as men's experiences. Because inclusive language is currently viewed specifically as an attack on women.
I have a feeling men don't take such notice to such a thing because they're just much less hyper-vigilant when it comes to larger societal trends, aren't they? Their status in the world is a lot less dependent on the whims of culture. And women have this underlying terror, which I think a lot of us are not conscious of being dragged, kicking and screaming back into the kitchen whether we want to go or not. Some of us would be happy to be there, a lot of us would not. And most of us have no idea what to do even if we do want to be there, okay? Because all women's culture has been destroyed. Also, there's no there's no organized movement for the furtherance of men's rights, mainly because they have the rights. They're the ones who created the concept of rights in the first fucking place. They're the ones who decided we didn't get any at first. We have needed to pay attention to such things. It has been beneficial to us as a class to pay attention to such things. I'm going to continue to do so. Thanks a lot.
By people whose transphobia means they conveniently don't realise that inclusive language actually means more women are being included, such as trans women are being included in the conversations they need to be included in, and also cis women are not being automatically assumed to have certain body parts or bodily functions as well, and it's recognising that not only women do this, not only men do that, and not all men or not all women experience this and that. It's just making everything inclusive.
Doing away with all categorization and differentiation in our culture is not a good idea. Some things are just different from one another. Metaphors are good. Let us suppose for a second that they are talking about inclusive language when it comes to food groups. We wouldn't want to use language that excludes any type of food from any other kind of food, right? I'm sure that would make chefs feel amazing, you know. They're not going to get criticized for anything they do anymore, but it's very, very dangerous for people with food allergies. It obscures the fact that some people have sensitivities and allergies to food. It obscures what is in the food. It obscures what the fuck we're talking about. Inclusive language obscures details and facts.
An example of this is that Macmillan Cancer Support has started using inclusive language in certain contexts where it's important to, and it's really wound certain people up. So Macmillan Cancer Support tweeted, "We use gender-neutral language in our cervical cancer information so anyone concerned about cervical cancer or with a diagnosis feels we can support them. Our goal is to support everyone living with cancer. It certainly is never our intention to make anyone feel excluded."
Well, I personally would feel very excluded if I had cervical cancer and I was looking at a pamphlet that did not address me as a person.
Very unhappy person who responded to this tweet from Macmillan Cancer Support with, "So why do you use gender-neutral language about women's cancers while being happy to reflect prostate cancer affects only men?" Automatically just shitting on the whole inclusive language thing and failing to recognise that not only women can get cervical cancer.
Yes, only women have cervical cancer. If you have cervical cancer, you're a woman. I am very sorry for you if you believe something else about yourself, because that would be incorrect.
As trans men and AFAB non-binary people can have a cervix as well. But they were so wound up in their own rage that they did no research beforehand and failed to realise that Macmillan Cancer Support do actually use gender-neutral terms when referring to things that are typically seen as men's cancers.
You probably didn't bother to research this because it has been a talking point in rad femme and gender critical circles for years now, that they target women's services with this gender inclusive shit. The one that really threw me for a loop a few years ago was the American Midwives Association. Like, oh, okay, you're still allowed to be wives, but we have to be pregnant people.
Because if they had looked a little deeper, they would have noticed gender-neutral language being used to describe prostate cancer. People who have a prostate include men, trans women, and people assigned male at birth.
Similarly, if you have prostate cancer, you are a man. Facts is facts.
It's scary and disheartening as a trans person to see the outrage and anger at simply being included in a very small number of scenarios in society.
You were already included because you are a woman. Trans people are not a thing. No one is born in the wrong body. What, you had a male brain? Magically, how? Newsflash, your brain is part of your body. It's nonsensical, okay? That's what's so scary and disheartening about all this to me. Is that you are obviously an intelligent young woman. Intelligence is like an all-terrain vehicle. It doesn't mean you don't get stuck. It just means you get stuck in more inaccessible places, right, Jamie?
Like, even the literal health secretary of the UK responded to the Labour leader party saying that not only women have a cervix by, quote, retweeting, "Total denial of scientific fact, and he wants to run the NHS." Yes, because I and all other trans men and AFAB non-binary people with a cervix suddenly disappear because the health secretary says that our existence is denial of scientific fact.
Your existence is a scientific fact, which is how you managed to make this video and put it up on YouTube and all of that. But the idea that you are actually secretly somehow magically a man inside is a denial of scientific fact, yes. The idea that anyone is neither male nor female, anyone of the human variety anyway, is a denial of scientific fact. Yes. I don't know who these British politicians are, to be honest, and I really get the strong feeling that at least one of them is pretty conservative. I'm just going to claim ignorance here and say that that sentiment is pretty undeniably true.
Somebody left a very wonderful response to him as well. "Thank you for saying so. It is unbelievable that in 2021 it is considered controversial that only women have a cervix. I personally find it unbelievable that in 2021/now 2022, trans people are still having to fight for basic recognition and respect within society."
That sounds familiar, doesn't it, ladies? And look at little Miss Turncoat here.
and basic access and recognition within healthcare situations. Trans men and AFAB non-binary people deserve and need the same access to things like cervical smears that cis women do.
They sure do need and deserve the same access because they're women! Thank you!
Personally, it's very clear on my medical records that I'm a trans man and I was assigned female at birth, and that I've not had a hysterectomy. But because my gender is down on the medical system, I get no contact or information about things like smear tests.
When you conflate sex, which is a material reality, and gender, which is in your head, mistakes can be made, alright? How exactly is man both a physical material reality and a gender if gender and sex are so completely different and disconnected from one another? How are these mistakes even being made? I don't understand, Jamie.
I'm aware of this. I have a cis woman partner who's the same age as me, so I see when she gets the notifications and I'm like, well, that's my notification as well. But not everybody is aware. Not everybody will know the timings between these tests. That's why they send out reminders. That's why they send out information to the people who need to get those tests done. I personally wouldn't even know where to begin as a trans person to get trans inclusive and trans accepting healthcare for something like a smear test.
Why exactly do you need trans inclusive healthcare to get your pap smear done? If you need a pap smear, you're a female. And I thought sex and gender were completely separate and different. I don't understand why your gender is relevant in the context of a pap smear.
So that's a little bit about why inclusive language is important. It's not a fix for all the issues faced by trans people when it comes to healthcare, but it's a start. It would help with recognition and education that not only a set gender experiences this one thing. For example, it would help with the understanding that not only women experience periods.
Yes. One more time for the people in the back. Only women experience menstruation!
It's useful all round, not just for trans people. There also needs to be a shift in perception that when it comes to medical things and just in general, trans people are not weird or confusing or difficult to deal with.
All right. You're only attempting to rewrite our entire culture and legal system. But sure, y'all aren't high maintenance at all.
We're really not. There's just not enough education or knowledge out there about trans people.
I understand perfectly well. I understand that you're wrong. And I could explain to you why at some length if I ever got the opportunity.
So increasing this education and knowledge around trans people, especially in healthcare scenarios, will help immensely, and inclusive language is a great way to start this. It really helps trans people be aware of where they need to be included and what they need to know about their own healthcare and feel like they're not being misgendered whenever they need to pursue certain healthcare needs.
Again, it would be a lot easier for trans people to know where they're supposed to be regarding their healthcare if no one had indulged their fucking delusion in the first place. You're a woman, Jamie, and it's okay.
Inclusive language by its very nature is not excluding anyone.
No, it excludes specificity, which in things like healthcare and legislation are integral to actually getting anything done.
It doesn't boil anybody down to their body parts or bodily functions. It's not only being used in the context of things that have historically been seen as women's things, such as cervical smear tests, it is also being used with things like prostate cancer as well. So it's definitely not a targeted attack to exclude or erase women at all.
Yes, for years it was a targeted attack to exclude and erase women from the conversation. We said this for years, all right? And now they have come along behind and started to fix that. You know, rather than just giving us our fucking words back, they have decided to fuck men over as well. Yay. That doesn't make it better. Okay, the fact that they're erasing specificity for everyone does not make it better. That makes it worse.
The only thing inclusive language achieves is including everybody that needs to be included in certain contexts. And a certain context is a very important thing to pay attention to. Inclusive language is not being used on an individual level. You will still be referred to as your gender. And it's not even being used that widespread. It's only for a very certain type of thing and in certain situations.
Only for a very certain type of thing. Yeah, at the top, like you said. Gosh, how do decisions play out? It's almost as if they are made at the top and they are, decreed downwards. Yeah, only a few certain circumstances at the moment. It's already gone way beyond what the fuck I'm comfortable with. No one asked me though. No one asked me. What am I again?
It's really not scary. It's not problematic, and it's just here to include people that need to be included and make sure everybody has access to healthcare they need access to.
Everyone who needed to be included in women's healthcare already was, including you. And it is scary. for reasons that I've already stated. And it's fashy. Yeah. Compelled speech is fascist, Jamie. You as a woman are selling us all out right now, and just, oh, watching these videos makes me so mad sometimes.
That's literally it.
That's not literally it. Again, legislation, okay? Here in the United States, anyway, I know the Democrats, like a few months ago, officially made it a thing where in their charter they were going to use gender-neutral language in their fucking congressional charter. It's not limited to healthcare. It never was limited to healthcare. And it's spreading like a fungus. But at least I still have that word. We still have some words to describe it, and we should use them while we can.
This has been a significantly more serious video than normal, but honestly, inclusive language is very important.
Language is very important. Inclusive language is very important if you want to obscure what the fuck you're actually saying. Double speak.
But yeah, that's everything for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you could learn something. And I know there's going to be a lot of comments that are being like, well, trans men are actually women, so therefore there's no need for inclusive language. That's just your transphobia. Trans men are men, trans women are women, non-binary people are non-binary.
Editing Sarah, popping in real quick to just say what an amazing rebuttal that is. Full of facts, Jamie, full of facts.
And so therefore there is a need to recognize that not just men experience these things and not just women experience these things. Yes.
So that's been our hang with Jamie today. Jammie Dodger! I think that this gets right to the crux, though, of a lot of the shit that's going down lately in our culture. Culture is sort of built on language. And if we don't have the language to describe, let's say, women as a class, we don't have the language to advocate for ourselves. Maybe on an individual level, but who the fuck gets anywhere with their government advocating for themselves on an individual level? That's not how that works. I don't know, they succeeded in turning workers against one another, and now they've just decided they're just going to turn all the plebs against one another. Inclusive language may be one of the most effective prongs of the divide and conquer strategy that the powers that be have been using against us little people for forever and a day. Since the original labor movement over 100 years ago, I want to say. Can't have collective bargaining if there's no collective, right? And it's just so bizarre how all of these left-wing ideas and policies that are supposed to be so inclusive actually end up atomizing us all. You know, your special gender is unique to you if you want it to be. Your gender expression is unique to you if you want it to be. And if other people who don't catch on, well, then they're the bigots. Not your responsibility to clearly communicate who and what you are or what you're about. Oh, no, no. Oh, no, no, no. It kills communication. It kills empathy. It kills our conception of ourselves as a group. Forget finding like-minded friends. Forget exploring any avenue of yourself based upon where you've started from, because there's not going to be a map. There will be no roadmap. There will be no direction. It's every woman for herself. Yeah, well, us plebs are all down here fighting over scraps. How many billionaires are there in the world now? But we can't even talk about the basic material reality of our lives because we have to use inclusive language. We can't make medical decisions or legislation based in the material reality of our lives. That's kind of terrifying. Thank you so much for going on this little trip with me and hanging out with our good friend Jammie Dodger, who, again, I really strongly relate to in a weird way. There but for the grace of time go I. And if I were 20 years younger, I would have been in line for my testosterone shots. Absolutely. I have been Rad Mom. Thank you for joining me out here in the garden where we do feminism from a materialist perspective, and I will be seeing you next time. Bye!